Yoshie Shiratori, born Yaoyu Rong, Shiratori Yoshie, July 31, 1907 to February 24, 1979, was a Japanese national born in Aomori Prefecture. Shiratori is famous for having escaped from several different prisons 4 times, making him an anti-hero in Japanese culture. There is a memorial to Shiratori at the Abashiri Prison Museum. There are numerous tales describing his escapes, but some details may be folkloric rather than factual. Prison breaks. Shiratori was born on the 31st of July 1907, in Aomori, Japan. Initially, he worked in a tofu shop and later as a fisherman to catch crabs in Russia. After switching jobs several times and finding little success, he turned to gambling and theft for a living. Aomori prison break. Falsely accused of murder, Shiratori was first imprisoned at Aomori prison in 1936. However, after studying the guards' routine for months, escaped by picking his cell lock with the metal wire that was wrapped around the bucket provided for bathing. Before escaping, he placed floorboards onto his futon to fool the passing guards into thinking he was still asleep. Akita prison break. Police recaptured Shiratori after 3 days while stealing supplies from a hospital. Sentenced to life in prison for escaping and theft, he was transferred to Akita prison in 1942. At Akita prison, Shiratori was placed in a cell specially designed for escape artists, featuring high ceilings, one small skylight, and smooth copper walls. Nevertheless, Shiratori was able to scale the walls, and noticed that the wood holding the window bars were beginning to rot. Every night, he would climb up to loosen the vent, until he finally managed to pry away the wood and open the skylight. During a stormy night, he climbed onto the roof without the guards hearing his footsteps, and fled the prison. 3 months later, he showed up at guard Kobayashi's house to ask for help in a case against injustice in the Japanese prison system, as he was one of the only people who had shown kindness and respect to Shiratori during his stay in the Akita prison. However, while Shiratori was in the bathroom, the guard called the police, and Shiratori was arrested and sent back to prison. Abashiri prison break. During the winter of 1943, Shiratori was transferred to Abashiri prison in northern Hokkaido, the country's northernmost prison. He was thrown into an open cell exposed to the extreme cold, allowing the guards to beat him down whenever he stood up. Angrily, Shiratori vowed to escape, and to the guards' amazement broke his handcuffs in front of them. Later, he was placed in specially made ones taking nearly 2 hours to unlock by a specialist who came once per week. When the guards delivered meals, however, he would always drip miso soup on the handcuffs and food slot, both of which became corroded, allowing Shiratori to break them. Then on August 26, 1944, he dislocated both of his shoulders, enabling him to fit out of the narrow food slot in his cell door and escape the prison, using a wartime blackout as cover. After living in an abandoned mine deep in the mountains for 2 years, he descended to a nearby village, and learned of the surrender of Japan. However, he was captured yet again after fatally stabbing a farmer who attacked him after he was caught stealing a tomato from his farm. He said it was an act of self-defense. 5, 6, 8, 7, 4. By now, he had made headlines on several newspapers in the Hokkaido Shimbun. Sapporo prison break. For his previous escapes and the farmer's murder, Shiratori was sentenced to death by the Sapporo District Court. At the Sapporo prison, he was placed in a specially designed cell with high ceilings and windows smaller than his head. However, the prison guards at Sapporo had so much faith in it that they no longer bothered to handcuff Shiratori, and because they paid so much attention towards his ceiling escapes, they neglected the floors. In 1947, he dug his way out by making a tunnel with miso soup bowls, placing the dirt in a small pocket underneath the floorboards. Final years. After a year of freedom, it is said that Shiratori was offered a cigarette by a police officer in a park. Moved by the kindness, Shiratori admitted he was an escaped convict and offered to be turned in. He was arrested and tried once again, but the High Court of Sapporo, having reviewed his case, decided that the farmer's death was a result of acting in self-defense, and during his escapes, he had not once injured or killed a single guard. As a result, the court revoked his death sentence, instead sentencing him to 20 years for his escapes. Shiratori's request to be imprisoned in Tokyo was also granted, and he spent 14 years in Fuchu prison until 1961, when he was released for good behavior. Later, he returned to Aomori to reunite with his daughter. His wife had died while he was in prison. Shiratori lived for another decade working odd jobs to survive. He eventually succumbed to a heart attack in 1979, aged 71. In media. Akira Yoshimura's novel Hagoku is based on Shiratori's life. The character Yoshitake Shiraoshi in the manga Golden Kamui by Satoru Noda was revealed in an interview with the author to have been based on and named after Shiratori. The movie, Prison Break 2017, is a documentary about Yoshie Shiratori.